Hello, friends, family, and bibliophiles. Bibliophiles feels really creepy. Bibliophiles? That sounds wrong. I'll figure it out for the next video. But hello, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I am Mona Lisa. If you're returning, a big, huge thank you for returning and sticking around, seeing that it's once again been months since my last video. I think I've come up with a plan of how to be much more consistent on here. We'll see if it works. The plan is to record over the weekend when my husband is home so he can watch Baby Girl, and then I will edit for 2 weeks if that's how long it takes, and then my plan at the moment is to get a video out every other week. We'll see how that does. It's going to be on Fridays for sure, but I have missed doing the videos and sharing what I've been reading and what I'm thinking about books and whatnot. Wanting to get into that definitely much more. So this is kind of the plan we're going with. I think 2 videos a month at this point is going to be plenty, but I can take some time during her naps and, you know, get some videos edited. So that's my plan. Since it's been a while, I figured you guys have no clue what I've been reading. I haven't been updating Goodreads, nothing like that. Haven't been posting on my Instagram. So I'm going to kind of do the mid-year freakout book tag 3/4 of the way through the year, just so you kind of get an idea of some of the things I've been reading and kind of some of the things I would like to read before the end of the year. So that's what we're doing in this video. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so if you've watched me before, you know I'm really, really good friends with Bookish Chaz, and Chaz does this thing of like, let me put my eyes on so he can read his questions. Sorry, I saw the camera just focus in and out, so sorry. But I'm going to have to take my eyes off because these glasses are for distance and they're new because Baby Girl broke my other ones, and this prescription is horrible for reading. So I'm going to take my eyes off, and camera keeps phasing. Don't know why, but that's the way it is. So I'm going to take my eyes off to be able to read the answers, or read the questions and give my answers. So question 1. Let's see if I remember the numbers, because I didn't put numbers on the list. Best book I've read this year. For me, hands down, it was Wild Card by Marie Lu. It's part of a duology. The first one is Warcross, and I enjoyed Warcross. I really enjoyed it. I was actually surprised at how much I enjoyed it. It ends on cliffhangers, and so I was like, gotta immediately do the second book, Wild Card. Blew me away. Now, here's the thing. When I do mysteries, I try to figure out who done it or what the mystery is, right? Try to solve it. In other books, when I'm reading, I try to think of like where the book could be going. But I find a lot of time I'm just kind of going for the ride. I'm enjoying it. Sometimes I try to guess kind of what could happen next, but I'm not like invested like I am in a mystery. I like really, really want to figure out like who done it. Especially Christie novels, because she foils me basically every time. With Wild Card, I had an idea of a couple things that would be happening, but they basically didn't happen. And I was surprised. There were a lot of things that came out in the book that I was not expecting. Threw me for a loop. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I have tried to get Bookish Chaz to put it up higher on his TBR. He hasn't done it yet, but I haven't pushed him too hard. But it's a book I thoroughly enjoy. I'm trying, not always doing great, because you get that endorphin rush, you know, of buying books. So I have bought more books, a lot of books. If you want a book haul, I can do that. There's a lot. I have a lot of kids books. If anybody's interested in kids books, I can do that as well. But anyway, I've been doing a lot of trying to read books from the library to see if I like the book before I go and buy the book to put them on my shelves, because Helen says you can get more books as long as you have shelves. Kinda, sorta do at the moment. I have another bookcase upstairs, but it's brown and not going with this room, so, but I still have room up there. Anyway, I want Warcross and Wild Card on my shelves. I Absolutely loved it. So the premise of the book is a guy, it's our world, but a guy has created these like helmets, I believe it starts off as, or like VR type goggles, and you wear them in the real world. So you see the real world, but kind of people can buy like skins. I forget what they're called. It's been a little while since I read it. But where your face can be different. It can look like somebody else's face, a different face. It can look like animals. You can kind of play with it. And above your head is like your game name and how many points you're at and things like that. Now, when you go into different locations, you can get more points. The more points, the more popular, blah, blah, blah type thing. Well, included with this world, and so if you're poor, like you don't get very far, right? Part of what he's done is created these games called Warcross. And there's people that go in and play these games, and there's winter every year. Well, these games are like these virtual worlds that you go in and play, and the team captain has like this jewel above their head you have to go and get. So the games are coming, and the girl hacks into the system. She's found out, and she's hired by the guy to find somebody who is infiltrating his system and trying to figure out who it is. Long story short, I can't get too much into it, but she goes on to one of the teams and she's trying to search for this person who's infiltrating the guy's game system, and things are revealed, and book 2 is just massive surprises. I mean, considering the ending that Warcross ends, there's so many things that are revealed in Wildcard that I wasn't expecting, and the just the twists and turns that happen I wasn't expecting, because I wasn't anticipating anything. I knew stuff was going to happen, but I didn't try to necessarily think what was going to happen. It was a total surprise for me. I loved it. I want to reread it again. I don't know, fairly soon. I would like in the next year, but we'll see. So that was the best book I've read so far this year. So far. Hopefully there's another one, but I'm okay if that's my biggest book this year. Next one, best sequel I've read this year. I tried not to double up, but I'm going to have to. Wildcard by Marie Lu. Enough said. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Number 3 is a new release from this year that I haven't read yet, but I want to. Here's the thing. I don't tend to I don't like at the beginning of the year look at the new releases and I have to read that when it comes out or whatever. I just don't. I go all the way from classics to modern to... I do mix up a little bit of everything, so I tend to learn about new books from other booktubers, and then I'll hear that they liked it or what it's about. I'm like, oh, that sounds like something I'm interested in, or no, maybe that's not for me, whatever it is. So I really don't keep track of the new releases. So I actually had to go online and see what some of them were to be like, oh, there you go. So I have a list. Sorry, there's a random hair. It was itching me. That I have. So I'm going to go through them and give you my list of ones I'd like to read. I can guarantee you there's only one that I know I'm going to read this year, and that's because I have it out from the library. But one of the books I heard about was The Women by Kristen Hanna. I heard about this from Jules Books and Things. I know others have started talking about it more, but she was the first person I heard about it. She gave a really good review of it. I'm going to link that review in the comments, in the box down below thing. It's about I'm going to go blank, a woman who is a nurse in the Vietnam War. Not going to get into it, but there's a lot of stuff in there. If I remember correctly, she did mention to look out for triggers, so do that beforehand. I haven't done that, but from what she told me, I should be able to handle the stuff. So, but The Women, Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli, I think is I don't know. Offhand, I don't remember what this is about, but a lot of people have enjoyed it. I think, it's about a woman who's a witch, and there's a witch hunter, and they fall in love or something. So there's that. Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. I hope I say these names. I'm horrible. It's a mystery thriller. I like those. Another one is Expiration Dates by Rebecca Surley, I think is how you say her name. I just recently heard of this one, and I cannot for the life of me remember the booktuber I heard about it from. But it's basically a woman, when she starts dating somebody, gets a piece of paper, and that piece of paper has a date on it, and that, or like a number on it, and that's the number of days that she's with this person. And then one day she meets a guy, and the piece of paper has no numbers on it, so she starts to wonder, is this my one true love? So that's the one that sounds kind of interesting, romancy, but not like crazy. So the one that I have from the library, I haven't started it yet, is The Husbands. Basically a woman single, and then one day she wakes up and she's married, and the husband goes up to the attic at some point, and a different dude comes down. So every time the husband goes up to the attic, a different guy comes down. And I guess it's kind of like a midnight library thing where you gotta kind of decide like which one's the best. Like, should I keep this one or move on to the next type situation? So I'm interested in that. The next one is Miss Morgan's Book Brigade by Janet, not gonna even attempt the name, Charles. Honestly, I'm not sure I spelled it correctly in my phone plus 2. Even if I did spell it correctly, I don't know how to say that. And this book was about an American librarian. I think they were from New York. She becomes interested in a library that was in France during World War II, I believe. World War I and World War II. So I like books about librarians and the wars and stuff. The Ministry of Time, it's about a woman falls in love with a time traveler, and this is by Caroline Bradley? Is that how you say it? Tell me if I'm right or not in the comments. A nonfiction novel would be When the Sea Came Alive by Garrett M. Graff, and it's involving World War II. Interested in this, and so there you go. And the last one is 0 Stars Would Not Recommend, and this is by M.J. Wasserstein. Frankenstein. So I'm going to say Wasserstein. This one, I've been it was like one of the reels that came up, when you're mindlessly scrolling on Instagram, and this came up, and it was before the release of the book, and his wife was doing a bunch of the, sorry this keeps phasing, I'm gonna have to ask Heavy about this, so I apologize, it's phasing in and out at times, but the wife was kind of his media person, and so I started following, and the book came out in August, and sorry, this just keeps driving me nuts. And so I'm interested in reading it. It's basically the sun has exploded and chaos ensues on Earth, and it's like how this guy spends the end of life on Earth or whatever. So we'll see. I don't know. Sounds interesting. Let's see. Biggest disappointment. This was a book by Christy McManus named 1996. It's part of her 90s flashback series. And in 96, I had just graduated high school. I was working at IHOP. And so I was like, oh, 90s. I can go back to the 90s. This was a good time for me. And it was supposed to be a romance novel. Basically, this girl, and I believe it was in Australia, and she goes to sleep, wakes up, she's back in 1996. Her life is completely different. People who have died are now alive, and everybody thinks, she's her 16-year-old or however old she was self, and she's going back and reliving this time. This time she runs into somebody she hadn't met before, and there's kind of this love connection, and she's trying to figure out, like, if she does certain things, that will change her present. So I was I was really looking forward to it. I was waiting for something big to happen by the end, for there to be some big twist, or for something to change in her present so she knew it was working or whatever. And there was nothing like that. And the love interest wasn't really a huge love interest type thing. I wanted so much more from this, and it just felt completely flat for me. So that was a disappointment. Another book that I just wanted more, and I don't know how she could have given more to Jodie Benson, who did the voice of Ariel in The Little Mermaid back in the 90s. It was her memoir, autobiography, Part of My World. There was nothing per se wrong with it. She's, there were things that happened in her life that, she's a Christian, so there were things that happened in her life that I wasn't quite expecting, but she's very real. I mean, she had some struggles in her marriage and things. She didn't always get the parts that she wanted and things. And so it was a very real book, but I don't know, like I wanted, and I did the audiobook, and I don't know, she has just the soft, sweet voice, and I just kind of wanted some excitement, something more from it, and so that was disappointing too. It was good. I would recommend it if somebody's interested in reading an autobiography and loves The Little Mermaid and whatnot, and wants to know more about her, but it just wasn't, I don't know what I was wanting, but I just wanted more. So there's that. Biggest surprise, I'm going to go and say Wild Card by Marie Lu. Did not expect so much of what happened in that book. So loved it. But I went ahead and also did another book that wasn't Wild Card, so it wasn't all about Wild Card. And I did Friendshipped by Savannah Scott, and it's a romance about two friends, boy and girl, who grew up together. She had always been interested in him and he wasn't, so she's still interested, and he, but she knows that he's not interested, so she never puts the move on him, and he actually does start to become interested, and so it's a dual point of view, and yeah, it's a romance. That's all I'm going to say. Don't want to give anything else away. Favorite author, either debut or new to me, Marie Lu. I want to go and read Legend and that series next, just to see if I'm going to like that. I'm not sure. If I remember correctly, hearing it's kind of like a Hunger Games type world thing, but I'm not sure. But I enjoyed Wild Card and Warcross enough that I want to read some more first to see if there's more. But out of the books they showed, she was my favorite. New fictional crush. Don't have one. I don't crush on characters. I remember I've never really crushed on fictional characters in books. Probably the only time I've ever really done that maybe is, and you may see Leia here, is after the 1994, I think, Little Women, with Christian Bale in it doing the role of Laurie. I sometimes picture him as Laurie when I read Little Women, and Christian Bale. He's a cutie. So that, like, I would say Laurie would be a fictional crush, because I'm picturing Christian, but I don't quite. But otherwise than that, I don't really have. I find it almost, and I know it's not, but it's like cheating on my husband if I'm crushing on somebody else. So I just don't do. I've never really done it. So I'm glad I can say that. Newest favorite character. This is going to be kind of weird and odd, I think, to some of you, but it's because of the humor and just the way he is, and that is Mr. Limoncello from the Mr. Limoncello series. It's middle grade. He builds a library in his hometown in Ohio, and he ends up putting on these Olympic races and different things like that. And he's just an odd duck. And he says the funny, like, somebody will say something and he says something that, like, isn't what a normal person would say, but what he says is funny. So I've enjoyed him because I keep reading these books, and it makes me laugh, and it just giggles, and it's middle grade, and it's just easy and fun, and I think I like him best because it was just fun. And he's kind of doesn't take life too seriously, and life is a lot right now, so it's kind of nice to read something where somebody doesn't take life so seriously and kind of has those funny puns to go in with what people say. I also really liked Mark. Now I'm not going to remember his last name because mom brain. I was just thinking it earlier. Mark from The Martian, just his fun character. The book is different than the movie. There's a lot of it in there, but it's also different. So one of my favorite lines from the movie is not in the book, which was very disappointing. But I enjoyed him too, just because he knows he's in a serious situation, yet he never really gives up hope. He's always like, okay, well, this sucks, but how am I going to, like, continue to live on Mars all by myself with this situation? Because I just fried my key, you know, the power to this. And just his ingenuity and how he has to think outside the box to be able to maintain his life. I'm sorry, this is just driving me nuts, and apparently nothing I do is going to help, except maybe sit like this for the rest of the video. Anyway, I enjoyed it because he uses the skills that he has. Plus, I love that he didn't really care for disco, because I don't care for disco, but one of his crewmates had Agatha Christie books on her little computer or whatever, so he read that, and there were a couple of lines from her books. Oh, he talks about using his little gray cells to be able to figure out this problem that he was working on. And I thought that was really cute how that was incorporated into the book. But I enjoyed that character a lot too, just his ingenuity and trying to, like, survive on Mars by himself with literally no help. The next, I was rambling, so I'm going to do this whole section over again, but a book that made you cry. I'm currently reading this one. It's I Will Always Write Back by Caitlin. I'm not even going to attempt it because last time I didn't even come close. And Martin Gonda. This is about a Caitlin who lives in Pennsylvania. I believe so. And growing up as a teenager, she's asked in class one day who wants a pen pal. She's like, I do. And she picks the country of the pen pal that she can't pronounce. She can't say Zimbabwe. She doesn't know where that is. And so she gets the information from Martin, who lives in Zimbabwe. He's also a teenager. And Caitlin's a normal American girl growing up in the 90s, you know, mall friends, playing. She lived in a cul-de-sac, playing with her friends, dealing with friends' dramas, whatnot. Martin is a guy who is very smart, works hard in school, and lives in absolute poverty. He father works in a factory. They live in a house that they share with another family, and this has made me cry on several occasions. I'm still reading it. I'm on 2 something out of 300 or 400 pages. The reason I think this touches my heart so much is I spent 4 months, and I've been to Uganda twice. The last time I was there for 4 months, I'm not saying we don't have poverty here in America, and I'm not saying that we don't have homeless and that things aren't bad here, but things are bad there too, and in a lot of ways it's worse than here. And I've lived that experience as far as being surrounded by it 24/7, day after day, week after week for several months. And I've talked with people who were living in that situation, and many of them still are in that type of a situation. And some of the things that Martin especially says, I get on a more personal level, as far as I've been there, not to Zimbabwe, but the poverty, and just the house, when he describes his house, I've been in those homes, and I know I've seen children with holes in their shoes, and during the week you may see them and their clothes are just full of holes, but on Sunday they have their one nice dress or their one nice suit they wear to church. And it really is heartbreaking, the stories I could tell. This has made me cry just because it takes me back to my experiences and the people I met and the people I grew to love and still love to this day. And so this made me cry. Another book that I read that it didn't make me cry, but it made me sad and actually kind of depressed for several days after finishing it. And then when I think about it, it just it makes me so sad. And that was Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing by Matthew Perry. I read this after he died, since it was this year, and he died last fall, almost a year ago. And When it first came out, I was interested because I like the Friends, the show Friends, and wanted to know what he had to say, and knew that he had struggled with drugs and whatnot, and had watched a couple small snippets of the interview he did. And so after he passed away, I'm like, well, I wonder, what it's like. So I went ahead and did the audiobook. And it's almost more heartbreaking, I think, in a way, to hear it from him versus just reading the book. I was so sad for him. He spent so much money and wasted so much time doing drugs and abusing alcohol and going into rehab and what he thought about himself, that he wasn't worthy to be loved. And I mean, he was dating freaking Julia Roberts, and like, he had this thing like he would dump the girl before the girl would dump him because he couldn't take that kind of rejection. He dumped freaking Julia Roberts, and from the sounds of it, she really had, like, the relationship was still really good, and he was just afraid like she was going to find out something about him, and she was going to dump him, and nope, can't let that happen, so he dumped her. And this was a pattern in his life, and it stems from his childhood. He wanted approval and acceptance from his parents, especially his mom, who worked in the Canadian government, and he just never could accept that he was good enough for people. And I know when they did that Friends reunion, he talked about like, if he did a line and it fell flat and people didn't laugh, he died inside because it was like he wasn't good enough. And I just wish that he could have learned that he was. And as a Christian, I would have hoped that he had found Jesus. And I just think about like what his co-stars were doing during their summer breaks in between seasons, like making more movies or going on vacation, spending time with their loved ones and enjoying themselves. And he was like always in rehab. And just what a waste that was. And it makes me so sad to know that he was that unhappy and that he thought about himself. Now, makes me do self-chat because I think that about myself sometimes. Not to the extent of him, but it's like, oh, I said my real name. Mona Lisa, step back, realize you may not be where you want to be. You may not always do things the way you want, or it hasn't panned out exactly, but it's okay. People love you. Your family loves you. Your friends love you. Your daughter loves you. So, but I didn't cry, but it made me depressed. So just thought I'd share that one.